Hey everybody, welcome to my first live Zoom here tonight. I am just testing out this whole process of doing a Zoom where people can join in for my community or just who came in through my invite link and be able to ask questions in the chat, talk amongst each other in the chat. And if you have, want to talk to me live, I can bring you up on the screen. So if you haven't joined me before, my name is Tracy and I am a YouTuber, gardener, and now have a great community of gardeners on the school app, which is where I am broadcasting this through today. And if you are watching this from outside of the school app and you want to be part of a great gardening community where we are really interactive, we have all sorts of chats going on all the time, sharing information and knowledge with each other. And I have all sorts of resources that I keep adding to the community, some of these live sessions like this, different YouTube videos that I've created, information courses, deep dives into different things, and just lots of gardening tips. So it's a great community. I hope that you will join. I will probably leave the link to it somewhere in this video when I get it posted. But tonight I'm doing another unraveling of one of my seedling snails. And this one has a cherry variety of tomato, a blueberry cherry tomato. And as you can see here, this has really produced some beautiful tomato plants. I don't know if you can see on the bottom here, but we have lots of beautiful roots. And I think I have about a dozen or more tomato plants in this seedling snail, but I don't plan on planting these all out in my own personal garden. I want to be able to share these with other people. So tonight I'm just going to pot them up into solo cups that I have marked here. I've got some holes punched in the bottom, a little bit of potting soil in them. So I'm just going to unravel this now and kind of pull apart the tomato plant, show you how the root systems look, and then we can, I would just want to keep a few for myself, so I will be raveling it back up once I take out some. So I'm hoping the way I have my camera set up here tonight, you can see what I'm doing. So I've been using bubble wrap as my kind of medium that I'm creating my seedling snail in. And I've been taping it shut with this tuck tape. Both of these have worked really well for me. And the great thing about this bubble wrap is, you can reuse it over and over. So I can clean this up at the end of the season and, reuse it. So I'm just trying to set it up here so that you can see. I get this good and wet so that when I unravel it, it doesn't all crumble. And just try to see how this works. Oh, so you got to make sure when you're doing this that your soil stays down onto the bubble wrap. As you can see, it was kind of unraveling. So you got to make sure you start it off so that your soil is staying down. I can feel, the tops here are kind of tangled up. So you got to just kind of gently unravel them. I'll get this all unraveled and then I'll maybe just bring the camera in so you can have a closer look at what's going on here. So a bit of tugging on the root system as I unravel here. And yeah, I'm really happy with the size of these tomatoes. There's some really nice, strong tomato plants here, and I'm hoping that uppotting them into or just transplanting over to solo cups isn't going to affect it too much. We have a few weeks before it is safe to plant out our tomatoes here where I am in Zone 3, Saskatchewan. It is the 5th of November today when I'm doing this filming. Our last frost date is usually May 15th. I usually wait till third week, sometimes end of May, depending on what kind of a spring we're having, because we can get a lot of late spring frosts that come in, if you're not prepared, and can wipe out some of these, more delicate plants that don't like the frost. So I'm going to just try and zoom you down here for a minute so you can have a good visual of what I'm doing. And just turn the phone down a bit, my camera. Maybe I'll have to hold it up so you can see. I'll just bring it around this way. So I'll just kind of hold it up, but you can see that the plants are all kind of nicely separated here. And I'm just going to start by trying to take the very end one out here. See if I can kind of tease it away from the other tomato next to it. You can see a pretty good root system here. And I've only put a little bit of potting soil in the bottom of my cup here. I don't want it to be sitting too high, so I want the root system to kind of get as far down into the cup as we can. Now I'm just going to top it up with a bunch of more potting soil. Try to hold it in the middle there. Okay. Then try to just stabilize it here in the middle. Push it down. Try to get it to stand up with a little more potting soil. Okay. So there, that's how we are uppotting some of these tomato plants into solo cups. So I have about 6 of them that I want to try and get into solo cups. And the reason is, I don't need all of these tomato plants in my garden. I only usually plant a dozen or so tomato plants and try to do different varieties. Sometimes if some leaves are on here that are going to be sitting below the lip of the cup here, I'll just pinch those off. I'll just put more on here. So that is basically all that is to trying to thin out some of these. I'm going to grab some kind of from in the middle here, see if I can take one that's in the middle just to thin them out a bit. They seem to pull away from each other pretty easily. I did this about a week or so ago with another seedling snail with a different variety of tomatoes. Potted them up. I'll show you some here in a minute, but they all seem to be adjusting well to their uppotting. Didn't cause too much disruption to them. Just top that up with a bunch of soil. There. I'm just going to turn the camera over here now to what I've got growing on my, this is my sunny window in the garage. So I have a lot of different seedlings. I'll try to get it so the light isn't too glary here for us. Turn it around here. That's pretty good. So over here, I've got all my tomatoes that I uppotted from my seedling snails a couple weeks ago. This is a determinate variety. This is a Firebird tomato, so it's a larger tomato. It's a dwarf though, so it's a nice one for putting into a container. grow bag, just a small area, because it'll only grow so big, and then it will bloom and fruit, as opposed to something like the indeterminate variety. This is a mortgage lifter, which is also a large sized tomato, but it is indeterminate, so it needs to be planted somewhere with some trellising or some string, some kind of a method, so it can keep growing, because the indeterminate varieties, as you know, will keep growing and growing and blooming and producing fruit until the plant dies or freezes, or you rip it out of the ground. So I have tons of tomatoes going here right now. I'm probably going to have about 50 or 60 in total, and probably we're going to try and either give them away to friends, as many as I can, or maybe I can just advertise them on Facebook or something, sell them for $3 a piece or 4 for 10, something like that. So I do have a couple more of the snails here that I could thin out a bit. Again, these are more indeterminate cherry tomatoes that I had started. And then over here, I have a lot more snails going, and these are all flowers. So this is my zinnias. As you can see, they are so huge, and I got a nice bunch of them here. I really like the snails for flowers, because you can plant a whole big bunch of them in a flower bed. I have big 30-gallon tubs that I do all my flowers in, and you can see, you can really see the roots, but all the roots just come out the bottom here. I bottom water the trays every day, and these things are just loving it. So I really like the snails for this type of thing for flowers. So I got, what is this? This is alyssum. So this is something that I will probably plant around in my potatoes, just around my vegetables. They're good for deterring bugs. They're a good pest control type flower. Very pretty to look at. I have my calendula. I usually plant up a huge tub of calendula. I like to harvest it for drying, and I make oil infusions with calendula so that I can, use it in my salves and soaps. The roots are just oozing out the bottom, but nothing is showing any signs of stress. They seem to be quite happy. What else do we got here? This is petunias. These are also ones that I started. I think these ones I started from seed in a tray, and once they started to get too big and needed to be up potted, I wrapped them up in a snail like this. And again, really happy with how that went, because I didn't have to put them in a whole bunch of trays or solo cups and take a whole bunch of space up. I have about a dozen or so petunias, all nicely wrapped up in the seedling snail. So when it comes time to plant them out, I'll just unravel this and put them into my pots wherever I want to put them. So I think the snails are going to be my go-to for flowers, definitely next year. Something that I thought was really cool was my peppers. I just want to show you something here. Grab a pepper, one of my pepper plants. So I transplanted, I got Reddies here, transplanted my peppers that I had started in solo cups. So I'd have 2 or 3 seedlings in here. And then once they got a little too big, I thinned them out and I put them into snails. So I have about, I think there's about 8 peppers in here, sweet peppers. And this is kind of, if you put them at the same level, soil wise, you can see that these ones in the snail are slightly bigger. They seem to be growing a little bit better. They have more space for roots, as you can see the difference. They're getting about, I don't know, 2 more inches of root space. This is a 6-inch snail, and they're just really happy. So again, if you are planning on planting, a bunch of these in your garden space, same variety, that's what kind of makes it a little more challenging in these snails, is if you don't have, a different bunch of varieties of the plant, it's a little hard to keep track of them in one snail. But these are all sweet peppers, King of the North or Rainbow, and they'll be going out into my garden. So I just wanted to show you the comparison. I would highly recommend a snail for peppers too. And I just have other flowers going here. I got my cosmos. Again, they are huge. They are, nice roots. They don't get root bound this way with the snail. They got lots of room to kind of get air and keep growing. I have them in these 2-inch or 1-inch trays that I can bottom water them really easily. Everything should be going out into pots and into my garden in a couple weeks. Again, trying to hold off until last frost date. What else do I got here? Oh, I got some herbs. Also a good way to start them is with the snail. This is oregano, and these are my oregano's babies. They are slow to grow, but they are coming along really good. And, I can add this into my kitchen herb garden, put them out amongst my vegetables, into the ground or into pots, wherever I want. You can never have too many herbs. You can always harvest them fresh all summer and dry them for the winter. So I love to have a good batch of herbs going at all times. So that's kind of my whole pitch on the seedling snails. I really like them. I don't know if I would use them for tomatoes just because I don't need that many of one variety, and it's pretty hard to keep track of different varieties if you plant them all into one snail. And I would, next year, definitely, I would be planting onions in the seedling snail. I just put my onions into the garden today, into my containers, and I had planted them up in what were they, like a loaf pan. So they were only about this deep. When I pulled them out, they were super root bound. They weren't very big, my onions, but I like to grow them from seed. And, you can never have enough onions. So next year, definitely, I will be doing onion seeds in the snail method because, you can get a ton of them planted up in here. They're going to have a nice, big, long root system to develop in. And then when it's time to plant them up, they'll be, ready to go and in a nice compact form while they are growing indoors. So that's pretty much, everything that's going on inside my garage. So like I said, we are about 2 weeks away from the last frost date, and I'm just trying to keep everything happy. That's usually the way it goes. Start hardening them off, start taking them outdoors for a couple hours a day, bringing them in, and just dealing with that hardening off process, watching the weather, make sure you check your nighttime temperatures as far, ahead as you can. There's usually a 14-day forecast that you can look it up and just check those nighttime temperatures and make sure that there's nothing dropping, below that 3 degrees Celsius at night. That's when it's getting pretty cold. If you're getting rain coming through, those kind of things, usually here in the prairies, when we get rain in the spring, it kind of turns cool and we get that risk of frost happening in May sometimes too. So that is basically my first live Zoom here today that I am hoping to be doing on a weekly basis inside our Gardeners Growing Together community. And it's something that all members can join in and we can chat, you can talk, ask questions, you can chat in the chat amongst each other. And just a great way for us to get together and talk about everything gardening, hoping that I can do this outdoors in my yard while I'm planting things up and, just see how it goes. It all depends on the wind and how things are going out in the garden and how good I am at running a camera and all that good stuff. So I'm really happy if you are watching the replay, please let me know in the comments what you are getting ready to plant outdoors, where you are living, what growing zone you're in. For most of us in cold growing zones, May is kind of crunch time where we are getting the garden beds ready. We are getting all of our indoor seedlings ready to go outside. And, there's a lot happening, a lot going on. So again, thanks for joining me here today. I would love to hear from you in the comments, and I hope that you will be part of the Gardeners Growing Together community. I will leave links to that in the description box below so that you can check it out. And we will see you then hopefully on the next live Zoom. Thank you.